Hello, welcome to the Pro Football Historian channel. I am just going to be going over all the games that happened this weekend. This is Monday, so I won't be talking about the Monday night game yet. Maybe I'll just go to a little preview of the game. Well, let's start off with the Thursday night game, the Cowboys and Saints. Obviously, Cowboys were up in most of this game. Not all of it, actually, they were up all of it. And they basically controlled the game, and obviously the turnovers by the Saints put it out away at near the end, especially the third interception by Taysom Hill, that pick six. Um, Taysom Hill was banged up. I can't put it all on him. He's in a tough spot, you know, playing a Thursday game. I mean, he did have a week to prepare because they played on Thanksgiving, like the Cowboys, but tough spot to have your first start with a pretty much banged up football team, especially the offensive side of the ball. And then to play good, Dallas team didn't turn out well, obviously, and I would expect Taysom Hill to play better, but I don't know with that injury how that's if he's going to be out for the year or he's just going to play through it. But that's tough. You obviously seen Russell Wilson play through a finger injury, and it just hinders your performance and your throwing ability. But besides that, you know, Dallas they did what they needed to do. They obviously could have probably ran the ball a little bit better, especially near the end. Threw a little bit too many passes and they were incomplete. So stopped the clock a lot, gave the Saints a few chances, which ultimately they didn't do anything with until the last touchdown at the very end, which didn't really mean much after they missed the onside kick. Moving on, before I do that, Dallas, they're up in the division at least two games. Should win the division, but they still have to play Washington twice. So Washington, they win their games and beat Dallas. They will control that division. So Dallas still needs to win, a few more games before they can clinch the division. And they're also looking at the first seed, which they're going to need a decent amount of help to get that. And the Saints, losing five straight, they were in a good spot at 5-2. It's just going to be hard to recover losing five straight now in that division because you have Carolina and Atlanta around the same spot as them, and Tampa Bay is far ahead of them with only five to play. Let's go into Tampa Bay actually. In this game, they passed the ball a lot with Tampa Bay, and for the most part, they were in control. Looked like the better football team. Obviously got a little close after the pick six Tom Brady threw. The 3-yard pick six right before half made it 17-20. But Atlanta didn't do anything in the second half really on offense. And Tampa Bay did what they needed to do. And they won the football game. Now they're 9-3. They're obviously looking for the first seed. They're behind Green Bay and Arizona. So they need a little bit of help. Before I go in Arizona and Green Bay, they probably have the toughest schedule out of the three, Tampa Bay. I'd say it's unlikely to get the first seed, but you never know. Because they should be, again, these number one teams in their division, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Dallas, Green Bay, they're probably favored in most of their games, if not all. Which ultimately doesn't mean anything on Sundays or Monday, whenever they play. Again, I expect Tampa to probably be the second or third seed. We'll see. Let's go in Arizona, though. Played Chicago. They looked like the better team as well. They controlled this game. Andy Dalton threw 4 interceptions. Again, not all his fault. Most of them actually went off the receiver's hands. I know one he threw Murphy just directly. It looked like it went right to Murphy, but Murphy, and he picked it off. But the other ones, I can't say were all his fault. Again, Chicago ran the ball pretty well, but it just wasn't enough. Arizona, again, I think they're 7-0 now on the road, and they won them all by 10 points. So, they look like they're really good. They're like the first road team it's like the 60-hour Cowboys to do that. So, pretty impressive. Let's go into the Chargers now. The Chargers, it looks like they like just beat Cincinnati pretty good, but honestly, it was 24-0. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, and then Cincinnati came back 22-24, and then all of a sudden, going down the field, Cincinnati, Joe Mixon got the ball, he fumbled, they returned it for a touchdown, the Chargers, and basically from there, the Chargers did what they needed to do, scored another touchdown, put it away. I'm just trying to go through these games pretty quickly, especially some of these games like this, which probably doesn't have too much meaning. I mean, Minnesota's still in play. And ultimately, they lost to a team that hasn't won all year. And Detroit down the whole game. Actually, sorry, they were not down. They actually were up 20-6. And they allowed Minnesota back in the game, which, if you've been following the Vikings or even the Lions, probably expected. But Detroit, at the end of the game, after Minnesota scored a touchdown to take the lead, Detroit went down the field and scored a touchdown with no time remaining. And now, obviously, the Lions, good for them. They got to win. You know, if they ever heard about that 0-17 or 0-16-1. And for the Vikings, it's a tough loss. I mean, I don't know where you go from here because they obviously look like they can beat any team, but they also can lose to every team. And being 5-7, still in play for the wild card. And technically, they can win the division, but being 4 back of Green Bay, they obviously have the win over them. Still have to play them again. I would say they have little to no chance to win a division. More of a playoff spot with the wild card behind Washington and the 49ers. So they still have a shot for that. But hard to see them doing that with the loss like this. Quickly, let's go over this game. The Indianapolis Colts did what they needed to. Ran the ball well. Threw when they had to, which wasn't much. Wentz did his job. Doesn't look like too impressive stats. 158 yards and a touchdown, but did what he needed to. And for the Texans, I would say, obviously not much went right. Couldn't run the ball. Tyrod Taylor had a pretty awful performance. Couldn't do much. The one pick early in the game, I think it was the first play for them. It was not a good pick. Not that any good picks are any good, but his was off to the sideline, short pass. Pretty much unacceptable. Shouldn't happen. And then eventually Davis Mills won in the game. Didn't do much better. In total, if you look at the passing yards, they didn't get 100. That's not even including the sacks. That's all I'm going to discuss over this game. Colts, looked pretty good. Did what they needed to do. This game, Giants obviously had to start Mike Lennon. Wasn't awful, but wasn't great. Stat-wise, didn't look good. And in the rush attack, Barkley, had one decent run. Looked better, but the offensive line for the Giants is just, they're obviously not good. Not good, but Dolphins are not good either. You could argue these are the two worst offensive lines in the league. And Dolphins do a better job of playing around that weakness, doing a lot of RPO, short passes. And they try to run the ball. They do the attempts. They just don't get the production out of it too much. So again, Tua, last few weeks hasn't done his job. Has looked well. The defense obviously played well again. Now won 5 straight. They're the 4th team in NFL history to win 5 straight after starting 1-7. So good for them. They're in the wild card. Can get that spot, but it's hard to see them winning all their games, or winning out, or winning most of them at least. Got a tough end of the year schedule. We'll see. They're back in play for. They won 10 games last year. Just a terrible start to the year, and puts them in a tough spot to win the division. And for the Giants, they pretty much have to win out to even have a shot of probably making the postseason. Say it's very unlikely. Let's move to the other New York team with the Jets and facing the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have now 12-0 against the Jets all time. For the Eagles, they had to start Gardner Minshew. Looked pretty good, did what he needed to. A lot of his incompletions is 5 incompletions on the day, 1 in the first half, 4 in the second. Basically, we're off screens, really. Wasn't much from the Jets. It was just maybe the screen recovered. Minshew just threw it in the ground. So I have to say, what Minshew was asked to do, he was almost perfect on the day. They ran the ball well. This is the first time the Eagles had a 100-yard rusher with Miles Sanders. And again, they averaged around, 158 yards about, and that's basically what they did. They got that. The Jets, they started off hot like the Eagles, and nothing in the second half. Zach Wilson, you could argue, might have been his best performance of the year and of his career in the NFL. I'm still high on Zach Wilson. There's just not a lot around him. He led you more. Almost looks like he's the number one guy now in the receiving corps for the Jets, which is surprising, being a rookie. And, they paid a lot of money for Corey Davis. Still have Crowder on that team. But, you just hope that connection, Wilson, the more keeps improving. Because for the Jets, Coleman had a decent performance running the ball, but I always like the only thing that went well for the Jets. Another terrible defensive game for the Jets. The injuries this year just hurt them. I don't know how much better they would have been, but you lose all those defensive, not even starters. They're just their best players, Carl Lawson and Marcus May, and Sheldon Rankin's in play. Just a lot of they're decent. They're actually good football players. They're just not playing either, which makes it very tough playing with backups on a bad football team. They gave up a lot of 40-point games this year, the Jets. The worst defense point-wise in the NFL. And statistically, worse in a lot of categories. Let's move on. The Eagles still have a chance, though. I will say that. Or, the 8th seed, if there was an 8th seed. So, for them, they're still in play. They have a bye week. Expect Hurts to probably be the guy still. Because that's what their season's most. That's what the number one thing about the Eagles. They need to figure out if Hurts is the guy going into next year. Another game, not much importance. Obviously, is important for the Rams. They did what they needed to do. Dominated the game. Obviously, I think the Rams went down the field and kicked the field goal, I think, to start the game. And then the Jags, right off the bat, fumbled the football. Robinson stripped from Aaron Donald. Or not stripped, I should say. And it was 10-0, and it didn't get much closer from there. Obviously, 37-7. Packers played end of the game. Let's go on and go to the Washington game. And this game was, it was a close game most of the time. Washington went down the field right away. I think Tony Gibson scored a touchdown with 7-0. Raiders kicked 2 field goals later in the game, middle of the game, I would say. And then it came down to the end with the Washington kicking a field goal with their 4th kicker of the year, I believe. And that was it. Basically, it wasn't much for it wasn't an exciting game till the very end. Not many turnovers. It was just a defensive game. And that's all I could really say about this. Both teams obviously in play for the wild card spot. Washington's in a wild card spot right now, and the Raiders. Like, if I had to pick, I don't think they're going to make it, but they're still in play for it. They're now tied with the Broncos in the division, 6-6, and the Chargers 7-5, Chiefs 8-4. I don't see much chance for them to make it because I just think there's better teams in the wild card spot. It's unfortunate for them. They went 3-0 to start the year, 5-2, I believe, after that, and then now they're 6-6. It's kind of like last year. They just have too much holes in their football team, even though they looked good at times this year. It's just certain matchups. They just offensively can't do much, and defensively still missing a few players. Now, one of the better games this year, even though I should say the first half, it was a somewhat boring game to some people, I would say. But it ultimately came out to the end. It came down to a 2-point conversion by the Ravens, which ultimately did not work for them. Lamar Jackson slightly missing the pass to Mark Andrews, and the Steelers coming out with victory, which keeps the Steelers in play. They lose that game, and been very tough to have a postseason spot or make in the postseason. Now they're still in place. Again, all the AFC North teams, you look at their schedule, very, very tough. I still don't think the Steelers will make it, but that's the type of football games they need to win. They have to keep it low scoring. They have to just slug it out, basically. Even though after 2 41-point games they've given up, sorry for my phone ringing, the Ravens is a bad loss because they were number 1 seed going into this game. They dropped down to number 3, I believe. And still should be number 3. Chiefs are number 4. Patriots are the 1st seed right now, and the Titans the 2nd. It wasn't good enough off on both sides, but Ravens, this is another game where they came and scored 20. Struggling offensively, and again, tough part of their schedule for all these AFC North teams is coming up. So it's going to be very hard for the Ravens to get the number 1 seed after losing this game. Still have New England tonight. We'll see where they are. Buffalo, is in that mix as well for top spot in the AFC. Really all I can say about this game. Let's move on to the 49ers and Seahawks. Pretty tough loss for the 49ers, as you were thinking. Okay, they had a good loss to the Cardinals a few weeks back. They looked good, won games they needed to, got the 6-5, and lose to the Seahawks, who only had 3 wins coming into this game. Doesn't look great. 6-6, still in a wild card spot. I like the 49ers as a football team. They got a lot of pieces. Obviously, Deebo Samuel being hurt them. But they got a lot of production out of George Kittle. Obviously, great game, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Jimmy Garoppolo's his turnovers really hurt him. And the Seahawks had big turnovers as well to keep the 49ers in the game. Everett had a ball go right in his chest, pop up and get picked off right on the end zone. That could have been points for the Seahawks. Then later in the game, 3rd and goal. Just trying to run out the clock, really. And they do like some shovel pass, and Everett fumbles, giving the 49ers another shot. The Seahawks could have been up 14 or 10, and instead they're only up 7. 49ers go down the field, 4th down, I should say, don't get it. And that's how the Seattle comes out with the win. And obviously Seattle needs to win basically every game, have any shot. Say for them, it's tough where they go from here. They don't have a lot of draft capital. Postseason's very, very unlikely. I know you could say they can try to continue that winning streak of Russell Wilson's career, basically, which means they have to win every game. Again, I don't see that happening. Even if they go 8-1, at least that they don't have a losing season. But at this point, they're just, I don't know. You don't know with Russell Wilson if he stays with Seahawks or not. So a lot of questions going with the Seahawks for the next month of the season, you would say, and what happens after that. Last game, the Sunday night game. What I'll start with this game is Denver's defense did what they needed to, but the Chiefs' defense did what they needed to. And the Broncos' offense did almost nothing the whole game. Scored a touchdown at the end. The turnovers by Teddy Bridgewater, the 20-play drive that ended up with no points, ultimately is the reason why the Chiefs came out to win. The Chiefs just Didn't have the ball a lot, but when they did, they got some points occasionally on their drives, and that's ultimately how they won 22-9. Chiefs in a decent spot, 8-4. I think they were 3-4, so 5 straight wins. And they're the 4th spot in the AFC. Ultimately, because they lost to Baltimore, they don't have the tiebreaker on them. And they lost to Tennessee, so they don't have the tiebreaker on them either. So I would say they have to almost win every game. Possibly they can lose one. I think they have to win every game to get that number 1 seed. And for the Chiefs, I don't know if they necessarily need it. Obviously we've seen them in the playoffs. They perform well. They have been in the Super Bowl the last 2 years. They're dangerous, and that's all you can really say about them. Offense has not been up to their level of the last 2 years, but who knows? They might turn that around. Even if they don't, defense is playing well. So they're a very good football team to play. And before, we got one more game. Let's just talk about preview maybe. Obviously, nothing's happened in this game because it's tonight. It's hard to pick who's going to win this game. Obviously, New England's the hot team. Buffalo's the home team. They won last year. They beat them. Buffalo won both games. It should be a close game. My feeling is I think Buffalo's going to win one of these 2 games against New England. And they're home. If I just had to pick, I would not bet on this game. If you want to, not that you would want to listen to me, but I would go with Buffalo on the game. Even though New England's playing the better football, just got a feeling with Buffalo, with winning this game. Should be a good game. This should be an exciting game to care about, especially the AFC East. Very important game. And to end this video, let's just talk about some of the news. Jets obviously had a bad day kicking the ball. They just signed Eddie Pinheiro, who played with the Bears last year. Logan Wilson is injured. Probably will miss some time. Just going through some of the key news. Logan Thomas got hurt. He's probably done for the year. It looks like a knee injury. Unfortunate. Same thing for Kenyon Drake. This is more of an ankle injury. He's probably going to miss the year. But if Josh Jacobs in fantasy or, or into that, probably helps you in that standpoint. Marlon Humphrey going to probably miss some time. We're hoping it's not a season-ending injury. That would really stink if it is for Baltimore. Because he's probably the only superstar on that defense still playing. They still have some good players like Justin Houston, Tyus Bowser, Dafe Away, players like Calais Campbell. They still have some solid players though. There's some news on the salary cap. Probably be $208 million. I'm just going through quick some of these news stories. Joe Brady got fired recently. I'm not surprised. Panthers offense hasn't been performing well. Obviously, quarterback injuries, quarterback performance could be a huge play in that. But I think I'm going to end it there. Thanks for listening. I don't know which format is better, me seeing my face and talking, or just going through the stats and going on a quick preview of these games and analyzing what happened over the week. I'll try to make another video later in the week about just doing preview of the next games, coming up. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned, subscribe if you want, and have a good week. Enjoy tonight's game.